Have you ever lost everything in a single moment? Michael Carter was at the peak of his success, the founder and 90% owner of Apex Tech. But one day, CEO Olivia Reeves walked in with an icy declaration. Michael, you're out. How could a man who owned almost the entire company be pushed out? Who was truly calling the shots? As secrets of hidden transactions, unexpected betrayals, and a devastating family truth unfold, Michael realizes he's not just losing his company, he's losing his entire world. But will he let it happen? Before continuing the story, tell me which city you're watching from. I want to know how far this video has come. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so I can send you exciting stories like this every day. Olivia stormed into my office, her tone sharp. Michael, you're out. The board has decided. I froze. How could they force me out of the company I built? Minutes later, a message buzzed on my phone. If you think Olivia's betrayal is bad, wait until you hear what Rebecca and Matthew are hiding. My world began to crumble. The hum of the city skyline outside my corner office had always been a comfort. The glass walls reflected the golden hues of the setting sun, a sharp contrast to the icy tension that filled the room. Olivia Reeves, my company's CEO, stood opposite me, her posture stiff, her arms crossed. The woman I had trusted to lead my company, the company I built from the ground up, was about to upend my life. I just didn't know it yet. Michael, this is for the best, Olivia said, her voice calm but calculated. The board has decided you should step down as chairman. I froze, her words a sharp slap to my composure. Step down, I echoed, barely able to keep my voice steady. I own 90% of this company, Olivia. You don't get to make that call. She sighed, her expression unreadable. Michael, Apex has outgrown you. The board believes it's time for fresh leadership. A transition. My jaw tightened. This isn't a transition. This is a coup. Her lips twitched into a faint smile. Call it what you will. The vote is scheduled for Friday. I stared at her, searching for a crack in her mask, a sign of hesitation. But her eyes were cold steel, devoid of remorse. Something darker was at play, and I intended to find out what. The elevator ride down to the parking garage felt interminable. My mind raced with questions, doubts, and most painfully, betrayal. I trusted Olivia. For years, she was my right hand, the one who handled the operations while I focused on innovation. When had that trust eroded into this? My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Brooke, my assistant and the one person who had never failed me. Michael, she said, her voice low, you need to see this. What is it? I've been going through Olivia's communications. There's something disturbing. Send it to me. I hung up and stepped into my car. As the engine roared to life, my email pinged. The files Brooke had sent revealed a series of emails between Olivia and my brother Matthew. Matthew and I hadn't spoken in years. Growing up, we were close, inseparable even. But as adults, we became rivals in everything. While I was building Apex Tech, Matthew had a string of failed startups and bad investments. I had bailed him out more than once, but the last time he burned me, I swore it would be the last. Now, seeing his name in Olivia's emails sent a chill down my spine. The emails hinted at secret meetings, financial transactions, and plans to restructure Apex once I was removed. My phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. It was Thomas, my lawyer and longtime friend. Michael, I've been digging into the board filings, he said without preamble. Olivia's rallying the directors to vote you out. They've got just enough support to push it through. What's Matthew's role in this? I asked, my voice tight. That's the thing, Thomas said. He's using his old connections to siphon company funds. They've set up shell corporations to launder money. If this comes out, it'll bury Apex. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. They're not just coming for my company, they're coming for me. That night, I went home to the high-rise apartment I shared with my wife, Rebecca, and our daughter, Sophia. The familiar warmth of the living room, a space we had designed together, felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else. Rebecca was in the kitchen, her laughter echoing as she chatted on the phone. Sophia, our 16-year-old, sat cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through her phone. We really appreciate you liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Your support is a great inspiration and encouragement for us. Thank you so much. Hey, Dad, Sophia said without looking up. I managed a tired smile. How was school? Fine, she mumbled, her attention still glued to the screen. Rebecca hung up and joined us, her smile radiant. You're home early, she said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. Rough day, something like that, I replied. My mind still clouded with Olivia's betrayal. Later that night, as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, Rebecca stirred beside me. Michael, you've been distant lately. Is something wrong? I hesitated. Rebecca had always been my anchor, the one person who kept me grounded. But tonight, her concern felt hollow. It's work, I said finally. Olivia and the board are trying to push me out. Rebecca frowned. Why would they do that? You're the heart of Apex. That's what I thought, I muttered. She placed a hand on my arm, her touch light but unfamiliar. You'll handle it. You always do. Her words were meant to comfort, but they only deepened the unease gnawing at me. The next morning, as I prepared to leave for the office, a delivery arrived, a plain manila envelope addressed to me. Inside was a DNA test result. Sophia Carter is not biologically related to Michael Carter. I stared at the paper, my heart pounding in my chest. The world tilted beneath me as the implications sank in. Rebecca, the woman I had trusted, loved, built a life with, had betrayed me. My phone buzzed, jolting me from my shock. It was Thomas. Michael, we've got a bigger problem, he said. The shell corporations tied to Matthew, they're draining funds faster than we thought. If we don't act now, we'll lose control of the company. I clenched the DNA results in my hand, a fresh wave of anger washing over me. Thomas, this isn't just about the company anymore. It's personal. That evening, I confronted Rebecca. She didn't deny it. Her calm demeanor only infuriated me more. You knew, I said, my voice shaking. You knew Sophia wasn't mine, and you let me believe. You're her father, Michael, Rebecca interrupted, her tone sharp. Not biologically, maybe, but in every way that matters. That doesn't make this right, I shouted. Who is he? Who's her father? Rebecca hesitated, then sighed. Matthew, the room spun, my brother, my daughter, my company. The betrayal was suffocating. I stood there, my chest heaving, as Rebecca watched me with an unreadable expression. Finally, I spoke. You and Matthew both think you can take everything from me, my company, my daughter, my life. But you're wrong. You've underestimated me. With my family fractured and my company under siege, I knew I had to act. Brooke and Thomas became my closest allies as I began gathering evidence of Olivia and Matthew's schemes. But this was more than a corporate battle now. This was about reclaiming everything they had stolen. My trust, my dignity, and my legacy. I was no longer just fighting for Apex. I was fighting for myself. The days that followed were a blur of strategy meetings, sleepless nights, and searing anger. Every corner of my life was collapsing. Olivia and Matthew were closing in on my company. Rebecca's betrayal left a chasm in my marriage. And Sophia, the girl I had raised as my own, felt like a stranger. Brooke was the only person who seemed unshaken by the storm. She sat across from me in my office, her laptop open, files spread across the desk. Michael, she said, breaking the silence. I've traced the funds from Matthew's shell corporations. It's worse than we thought. They're leveraging Apex as collateral for loans. I pinched the bridge of my nose. How much? Over $20 million, she said quietly. And if those loans default, the creditors will come straight for Apex. Of course they will, I muttered. It's not just about taking the company. They want to destroy it. Brooke hesitated, then leaned forward. There's something else. I've found a connection between Olivia and Rebecca. My stomach dropped. What kind of connection? Brooke turned her laptop around to show me an email chain. Olivia had been in contact with Rebecca for months, feeding her information about my absence, my meetings, even my moods. She's been helping them, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Rebecca's been feeding them ammunition. Please comment number 1 so that I can know that you liked the video and subscribe to our channel. Your support is a great inspiration and encouragement for us. Thank you very much. That evening, I returned home to find Rebecca in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup. The domesticity of it felt grotesque after everything I'd learned. Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes, she said, without looking up. I stood in the doorway, the weight of the DNA results and Olivia's emails pressing down on me. How long, Rebecca? She froze, the spoon clattering against the pot. How long what? How long have you been working with Olivia? How long have you been lying to me about Sophia? She turned slowly, her face pale. Michael, I can explain. Explain, I snapped, my voice rising. Explain how you slept with my brother, how you let me raise his child while stabbing me in the back. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't let her speak. You were part of this the whole time, weren't you? Helping Olivia and Matthew, selling me out. Rebecca's voice cracked as she finally responded. I didn't want to hurt you, Michael. I was desperate. Matthew said he could help us, help Sophia. Her words hit me like a blow. Help Sophia by destroying her father's life. She doesn't know Michael, Rebecca whispered. She doesn't know Matthew is her biological father. Please don't take it out on her. Don't, I said coldly. Don't you dare ask me to protect you or him. You've already taken everything from me. The next day I called Thomas and Brooke to a meeting at my house. I laid out everything. The DNA test, Rebecca's betrayal, and her connection to Olivia. We can use this, Thomas said, his voice measured. If Rebecca and Olivia were conspiring, it's another nail in Olivia's coffin. But at what cost? Brooke interjected, her brow furrowed. Dragging Rebecca and Sophia into this could destroy Michael's personal life entirely. My personal life is already in ruins, I said flatly. If Rebecca and Matthew want to burn everything to the ground, I'll make sure they go down with it. As we strategized, a text from Sophia lit up my phone. Dad, can we talk? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Did she know? Or was she just a pawn in this mess? As blind as I had been? Michael, Brooke said gently. She's your daughter, no matter what the DNA says. Don't lose sight of that. I nodded, though my resolve remained firm. I had to protect Apex, even if it meant tearing apart what was left of my family. Later that evening, I met Sophia at a coffee shop near her school. She was already seated, fidgeting with the lid of her cup. When she saw me, her face lit up in a way that twisted the knife in my chest. Hey, Dad, she said, her voice soft. I forced a smile. Hey, kiddo. For a moment, we sat in silence, the din of the cafe filling the gaps between us. Mom's been acting weird, Sophia said finally. She's nervous all the time and she keeps saying we should stick together. What's going on? I studied her face, searching for any hint of deceit. But all I saw was the girl I had raised, the daughter who had called me daddy when she was scared, who had cheered me on at her school plays. Sophia? I began, my throat tightening. There's something I need to tell you. Her expression shifted, fear creeping into her eyes. What is it? Before I could speak, my phone buzzed. It was Thomas. Urgent. Olivia knows about the emails. I cursed under my breath. I'll tell you everything soon, I promised Sophia. But right now, I need you to trust me. The following morning, I arrived at the Apex headquarters with a plan. Olivia had called an emergency board meeting, likely to counter whatever moves I was making. But I had no intention of letting her control the narrative. The boardroom was tense, the air heavy with anticipation. Olivia sat at the head of the table, her confidence intact despite the chaos swirling around her. Matthew was conspicuously absent. Michael, Olivia said, her tone icy, care to explain why you've been digging into company records without authorization? Care to explain why you've been funneling company funds into shell corporations with my brother? I shot back, dropping a stack of documents onto the table. The board members leaned forward, their faces etched with confusion and concern. I have evidence, I continued, that Olivia and Matthew have been embezzling funds and leveraging Apex for personal gain, and it doesn't stop there. Olivia has been conspiring with Rebecca, my wife, to undermine my position and destabilize this company. Olivia's composure faltered, but only for a moment. This is a desperate attempt to discredit me, she said, her voice steady. Michael has been erratic for months. He's grasping at straws. Am I? I retorted, turning to the board. If I'm wrong, why did Olivia approve $20 million in unsecured loans? Why has she been meeting with Matthew off the record? The room erupted in murmurs, the board members exchanging uneasy glances. Olivia's mask finally cracked. You're making a mistake, Michael. If you pursue this, it will destroy you. No, Olivia, I said, my voice firm. It will destroy you. By the end of the meeting, the board voted to suspend Olivia pending further investigation. The tide was turning in my favor, but the cost of victory weighed heavily. Rebecca's betrayal, Sophia's unspoken questions and the looming shadow of Matthew's involvement left scars I wasn't sure would ever heal. As I stepped out of the boardroom, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Matthew. "We need to talk." I stared at the screen, the words blurring as anger and exhaustion swirled within me. If Matthew thought he could talk his way out of this, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. Matthew's message burned a hole in my mind as I drove to the secluded address he'd sent me, a quiet cafe on the outskirts of the city, far from prying eyes. Whatever he had to say, it wouldn't be good. When I arrived, Matthew was already there, seated in a booth near the back. He looked disheveled, a shadow of the confident man I remembered. His usual cocky grin was gone, replaced by a haunted expression that almost made me pity him. "Michael," he said as I slid into the booth opposite him. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't slept in days. "Talk," I said coldly, "and make it quick." Matthew ran a hand through his hair, his fingers trembling. "You have to understand, I never meant for it to go this far. You've been working with Olivia for months," I snapped. "You used my company, stole my money, and destroyed my family. How far did you mean to go?" He flinched but held my gaze. "I was desperate, okay? After my last business failed, I had nothing. Olivia offered me a way out. And Rebecca," I demanded, "was she part of your way out too?" Matthew's face crumpled. That was a mistake. A long time ago. I didn't know she was going to lie to you about Sophia." "Convenient," I said, my voice laced with venom. "You didn't know, and yet you've been playing happy family behind my back for years." Matthew leaned forward, his eyes pleading. "Michael, I'm sorry, I swear. I never wanted to hurt you, but Olivia, she's dangerous. She has dirt on all of us. If we don't stop her, she'll burn Apex to the ground." "Then help me," I said, my tone sharp. "Give me everything you have on her." For a moment, Matthew hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but I need something in return." I stiffened. "You're in no position to make demands." "Please," he said, his voice breaking, "help me fix things with Sophia. She doesn't know everything, but she'll hate me when she finds out. I want a chance to make it right." I stared at him, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let him drown in the mess he'd created. But another part, a quieter, more human part, remembered the brother he used to be. "Fine," I said at last. "But if you screw me over again, you'll regret it." With Matthew's cooperation, I had the last pieces of the puzzle. Bank records, email chains, and internal memos, all pointing to Olivia's corruption. Thomas and Brooke worked tirelessly to compile everything into an airtight case. Meanwhile, I prepared for what would be the most important shareholder meeting in Apex's history. The morning of the meeting, I stood in the mirror, adjusting my tie. Rebecca watched from the doorway, her expression a mix of guilt and sadness. "You're really going through with this," she said quietly. I met her gaze in the reflection. "I don't have a choice." "What about us?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What about Sophia?" I turned to face her, my expression hard. "You made your choices, Rebecca. Now I have to make mine." She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Michael, for everything." I didn't respond. The weight of her apology wasn't enough to undo the damage she'd done. The Apex conference room buzzed with tension as shareholders and board members filed in. Olivia sat at the head of the table, her composure intact, though her eyes darted nervously around the room. Matthew was nowhere to be seen. He had refused to attend, citing fear of retaliation from Olivia. I entered last, carrying a leather briefcase filled with evidence. As I approached the table, the room fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," Olivia began, her voice steady, "we're here to discuss the future of Apex. Michael Carter has proven to be a distraction and a liability. It's time for a change in leadership." Before she could continue, I stood and opened the briefcase. "Before anyone makes a decision, there's something you all need to see." I distributed the documents, watching as the room erupted into murmurs and gasps. Olivia's face paled as the evidence of her embezzlement, collusion with Matthew, and attempts to sabotage the company were laid bare. "This is absurd," she sputtered. "These documents are fabricated." "They're not," I said calmly. "And if anyone needs further proof, I have recordings of her meetings with Matthew where they discuss their plans in detail." I pressed play on my phone, the room filling with Olivia's voice as she outlined her strategy to seize control of Apex. The board members stared at her, their expressions ranging from shock to fury. Olivia Reeves, the chairman, said finally, his tone cold. You're hereby terminated as CEO, effective immediately. Olivia shot to her feet, her composure crumbling. You can't do this. You'll regret it. Guards, the chairman interrupted, escort her out. As she was led away, her eyes met mine, burning with hatred. This isn't over, Michael, she hissed. Yes, it is, I replied with a steady voice. With Olivia gone, the board moved to reinstate me as chairman. But the victory felt hollow. Apex was safe, but my personal life was still in shambles. Rebecca moved out of the apartment that night, taking Sophia with her. We agreed on shared custody, though our interactions remained strained. Sophia struggled to process the truth about her parentage, and our relationship was far from what it once was. Matthew disappeared after the shareholder meeting, leaving behind only a short note. I'm sorry for everything. I hope one day you can forgive me. Months passed and Apex began to rebuild. The scars from Olivia's betrayal and Matthew's greed were still there, etched into every corner of my life. Apex had survived the storm, but the damage left behind was undeniable. Yet the company didn't crumble. Instead, it emerged stronger, more resilient, because it had weathered a battle meant to destroy it. I was no longer the man who blindly believed in loyalty, but I had learned to rebuild from the ashes. Brooke had become my most trusted advisor. She wasn't just an exceptional assistant. She was the one who stood by me when everything around me collapsed. She helped me uncover the truth, expose the traitors, and most importantly, she helped me stay on my feet when the world tried to break me. Thomas, my longtime friend, remained a pillar of support. More than just a lawyer, he was a brother in arms, someone I could truly rely on. Thanks to them, I was no longer alone in this fight. One evening, as I stood in my office, gazing out at the city bathed in golden light, my phone rang. I picked up, and on the other end, her voice was hesitant yet warm. Dad, Sophia said, I was thinking maybe we could have dinner sometime. Just us. I froze for a moment. Such a simple invitation. Yet it carried so much weight. I smiled, a small but genuine glimmer of hope piercing through the darkness. I'd like that, I replied. As I hung up, I stood there for a while, letting the emotions settle. The wounds of the past may never fully heal, but that didn't mean I couldn't start again. Maybe forgiveness wouldn't come overnight, but sometimes all it takes is a chance, a dinner, a conversation, and everything could change. I realized that while the pain of betrayal would always be a part of me, there was still a path forward, a chance to make things right, to rebuild from the wreckage, for my family, for Apex, and for myself. Had been broken? Could time heal the fractures in his family? He wanted to believe it, but too many times before, his trust had been shattered by those he loved most. He walked over to the window, watching as the city slipped into darkness. The skyline twinkled with artificial light, reflected against the cold glass. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to believe the fight was over, that he could finally breathe. But as he turned back to his desk, his computer screen blinked with a new notification, an unread email. Sender, Matthew Carter. Michael sat down, his pulse heavy. A part of him wanted to ignore it, to shut the computer and savor this rare moment of peace. But he knew better. With Matthew, nothing was ever simple. His fingers hovered over the keyboard before clicking the message open. You think it's over? You have no idea. A single attachment sat below the text. Michael hesitated for a second, then opened it. A series of documents unfolded before him. Financial statements, contracts, and hidden transactions under the name Apex Holdings LLC, a subsidiary he'd never seen before. The figures made his blood run cold. Over $30 million had vanished from company funds, funneled through offshore accounts. But what sent an even sharper jolt through his chest was the name authorizing these transfers, Olivia Reeves. His grip tightened on the chair. Olivia had been removed, but her grip on Apex was far from gone. And Matthew? Was this a warning? Or was he playing another game, setting the stage for something even bigger? Michael leaned back, his breath unsteady. The battle he thought was over had only just begun. Michael stepped into the cafe, a place he and Sophia used to visit years ago. The ambiance remained unchanged, the soft golden lights, the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the familiar worn wooden chairs. He remembered sitting here, reading while Sophia chattered on about her day at school. But today, everything felt different. He scanned the room and spotted her. Sophia was already seated near the window, their usual spot. She looked older than he remembered, or maybe it was the weight of everything they had been through that made her seem so. Michael walked toward her slowly, a heaviness settling in his chest. For a while, neither of them spoke. Sophia absent-mindedly stirred her drink, her gaze fixed on the bustling streets outside. Michael wanted to say something, anything, but words felt inadequate. There was a time when they didn't need words to understand each other. But now, the distance between them was undeniable. Eventually, Sophia broke the silence. Her voice was quiet, but there was something in it. A hesitance, a lingering uncertainty Michael could sense. She asked about her mother, about what had happened, about why everything had changed so quickly. Michael listened, trying to find the right words to explain, but the truth was, there were no perfect answers. Then she voiced her greatest fear. It wasn't about her mother leaving, nor the secrets that had been revealed. It was the fear that Michael no longer saw her as his daughter. Her words hit him harder than anything else. No matter what had happened, no matter how painful the truth was, Sophia was still Sophia. Nothing could change that. The cafe seemed to quiet around them. Michael looked at his daughter, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he saw something familiar in her eyes. The little girl who once clung to him when she was scared, who once called him Dad with unfiltered joy. He knew this was a moment that mattered more than any other. Slowly, he reached out, resting his hand gently on top of hers. No words could erase the past, but some things didn't need to be said. No matter what changed, no matter what DNA said, Michael knew one thing for certain. He was still Sophia's father, and he always would be. Outside the window, life continued moving forward, indifferent to the weight of their moment. But in that instant, Michael knew that something had begun to heal. Maybe things would never go back to how they once were, but at the very least, they still had each other. Michael Carter stood in his office, the golden hues of the setting sun casting long shadows across the glass walls. The city hummed outside, alive as ever, but inside him, a storm raged. He had won back his company, but peace still eluded him. He thought about what he had lost, the wounds that no battle could ever truly heal. Rebecca, the wife who had once been his anchor, was now just a painful memory. Matthew, the brother he had sacrificed so much for, had been the one to push him into the abyss. Olivia, the mastermind behind it all, had been removed, yet the scars she left behind still lingered. But through all of this, one thing mattered more than anything else, Sophia. He thought back to the moment he received her message. Dad, can we meet? A simple question, yet it carried a weight he could barely comprehend. Should he see her? After everything, could he still be her father when the truth had unraveled everything? But then he realized for 16 years, he had been more than just a father. On paper, he had loved her, protected her, raised her with everything he had, and that would never change. He typed back, "Of course, sweetheart." One message. But in that moment, it carried all the hope he had left. The battle against Olivia was over, but the battle within himself was far from finished. There were losses he could never undo, but there were also things more valuable than victory, a chance to start over, to hold on to what truly mattered. He took a deep breath, his eyes settling on his computer screen, where countless plans awaited his attention. Apex was back, but Michael Carter was no longer the man he once was. He had lost too much, but he had also learned more than he ever thought possible. And this time, he would not let anyone take anything from him again. This story isn't just about power, ambition, or betrayal. It's about people. It's about what truly matters. It's about how we rise when the world tries to push us down. And it's about the choices we make, no matter how painful they may be. There's a harsh truth in life that we all have to face. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones we trusted the most. The real enemies aren't always on the outside. Sometimes they are the ones who stood beside us, built with us, loved us. And when betrayal strikes, it doesn't just wound our trust, it shatters everything we once believed in. Michael Carter didn't just lose his company, he lost his family, his sense of reality. The wife he once loved hid a truth too painful to forgive. The brother he once protected turned out to be the one stabbing him in the back. And Olivia Reeves, the CEO he trusted to lead his company, had been orchestrating his downfall all along. But in the midst of destruction, Michael didn't break. He found something far more valuable himself. Olivia was dethroned. Matthew vanished. Rebecca walked away. But what about Sophia? The daughter Michael raised for 16 years, no matter the truth, was still an irreplaceable part of his life. A bond fractured by deception, but could it be repaired through love? Maybe, just maybe, hope wasn't entirely lost. We often think that the biggest blows in life come from financial losses or failures. But no, the true devastation comes from betrayal, the feeling that the people we counted on the most have turned against us. But even in our darkest moments, we don't break because of the hits. We break when we choose to give up. Michael didn't. He rose again, not just for his company, but for everything he stood for. This story isn't just about power or wealth. It's about trust, loyalty, and the values that money can't buy. It's a reminder that strength isn't about never falling. It's about rising after the world tries to crush you. People can take your money, your reputation, even the people you love. But only you can decide whether they take away who you are. So what happens next? Michael has reclaimed his company, but is the real battle truly over? Have the enemies lurking in the shadows disappeared? Or are they simply waiting for the right moment to strike again? And most importantly, can Michael rebuild his life, mend his family, or is this just the beginning of another tragedy? If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt betrayed, lost, or if you simply love gripping, intense stories, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter. Michael's journey isn't over yet, just like our own stories are still being written.